Hello and welcome to today's video from the estate on Monday the 23rd of February 2026. Right, where do we begin? Or should I say, has it begun? You know, hopefully with the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and hopefully with the arrest of Mandelson, we might start seeing the UK government going down the same route as Germany, France, Italy, hopefully the European Union, as to how deep this Epstein grenade will explode, because there's not just Mandelson involved in this country. And as I've said in previous videos, Starmer knew in 2010 that Mandelson was corrupt. Forget about what he says about last year and him giving Mandelson the ambassadorial ship to America, because that is just a lie, a blatant, barefaced lie. It's like when you ask a kid something, you know, when they've done something wrong, and they say, "Did you do that?" And they say, "No, I didn't." And there's only them in the room, but they don't care if they don't see it for what it is, because that's children for you. And for someone who purports to be the adult in the room, I don't know how he's still getting away with it. 2010, Mandelson resigned with giving sensitive information to Epstein. That is beyond, no one can dispute the fact of that. Yet, no one seems to ask the question, is, in 2010, did you know about Mandelson? Because Gordon Brown hated Mandelson. He only gave him a job to keep Tony Blair happy, you know. So I can't believe for one moment that he wouldn't have at least raised the question with Starmer as to, can we arrest him? Can we charge him with something? Or again, was he protecting someone closer to home, like the Prince Andrew, as he was known at the time? Because as I said again in previous videos, the MI5, MI6 knew what he was up to. His own armed police detail knew what he was up to. I mean, just because he was on Epstein's island doesn't mean he didn't have police protection. And, you know, the police, their role was to protect Prince Andrew from violence, from attack, not from his own stupidity. And as long as they let the right people know, doesn't matter the consequences, they did their job. And I believe they did their job. And we're now here having to believe the likes of, well, he never told me. And when I found out, I took action, you know. I did. No, you didn't. Because you knew beforehand and you still did it. You know. You don't stick your hand in a fire to see if it burns and hurts, only to do it again. Because it will hurt and it will burn again. And that's what he did. But everyone's just acts on about what happened last year. You know, it's not about last year. Go back to the beginning. It's like I say, if he knew in 2010 about Mandelson, it's obvious that he knew then about Prince Andrew. And if he knew about Prince Andrew, we knew about Epstein. I think Starmer just made me devastated that he never got to go to Epstein Island and never got to be part of it, the Epstein class. That would have been the pinnacle of his life, you know. Instead of being stuck with Ukrainian rent boys, he could take his pick out of the global population as to what he wanted. Anyway, let's go on now. There's nothing more that can be said about this, and until the right questions are asked, there's nothing anyone can say. What you have to look at as well is the U-turns that Starmer has made on elections. Even his little, you know, oh, Trump, you're not using our air bases and you're not using Diego Garcia. Hey, well, why have you got a destroyer with his Armada? You know, his big, beautiful Armada off Iran. Why have you got F-35s and British refuelers, in Cyprus? Why? Because you have no intentions of following up on it. Trump, you're leaving it, you're just going to let Trump do it and blame it all on him because you're a shitbag. Yeah, you won't accept responsibility for your own mistakes. And for that, you could never be forgiven. Forget about the victims of the Epstein grenade and the Epstein class. Well, sorry, don't forget about them. They're the most important, the victims. But aside from the victims, we blame it all on Trump, because Trump, in 2016, when he got voted in as president, at the time, the extent of his criminal personality and his cult of personality that seems to run the White House at the moment, it wasn't as well known as it is now. You know, it's been proven in courtrooms what a horrible person he is, and yet they still voted him in. And the minute they voted a criminal into the White House, how can you not expect criminal behaviour? Eh? How can you join, you know, an organised crime group and not expect to be involved in organised crime? It just doesn't make sense, does it? So, looking at it from even the most stupidest person on the planet can see it for what it is. You know, the man is a criminal, and you cannot expect anything other than criminal behaviour. And it's all there is. It's all he knows how to do. It is to lie and cheat and steal and attack people worse off than him, making them even worse off than him. And he gets his kick out of it. That's why he gets his kick out of abusing young people, you know, young girls, even older women. That's how he gets his kick, by being better than them when he's no better than the shit on your shoe when you work in the dog's home. So that's my view on Trump. I also see Marco Rubio. He won't get involved in anything, have you noticed? That's because he wants to be president in 2028. That's why he's got nothing to do with Venezuela. It's why he's got nothing to do with Iran, why he's not over there being diplomatic. Not that he could be diplomatic. I mean, that man must have been bullied about the size of his ears. I mean, I've got a bad ear. I've got a cauliflower ear. But have you seen the size of his ears? Oh, God, they are big. So, Rubio wants to keep his ears clean. Not because they're that big, but because he wants to be president. That's why he didn't take on the governorship of Venezuela, because that's not a You can't predict the outcome. It's unpredictable, Venezuela, at the moment. Same as this thing with Iran. And we know Trump's not going to get elected again. So that's the end of his political career. What he wants is a legacy. And he wants a legacy, along with Netanyahu, about deposing the Islamic Republic. And I think they're not going to surrender. Iran's not going to surrender. No country in its right mind is going to surrender in this day and age. Now, I don't believe that Iran wants to go as far as it's going to have to go, but it knows it's got no choice in the matter. And I feel for them. You know, I feel for them, because you have the likes of Mossad and MI6 and the CIA and probably every other intelligence network in the world all converging on Tehran, trying to create circumstances where they don't have to go to war, they can just sort out regime change. But again, that's not going to happen. Iran knows the consequences of and what's at stake. China does, and Russia does. Now, I think Russia know what's coming. I think the Chinese do. I think every person in the right mind really knows what's coming. And it's not going to be good. The outcome is not going to be good. And everyone involved in it, apart from, I won't say innocent parties, but parties that are, they've not set out to cause this situation. They're just responding to it. And as we know, when you're on an instantaneous kind of response to a threat, you're capable of making mistakes. And doesn't matter if you can convince yourself that you're right. It's not yourself you have to convince. It's everyone else. It's the rest of the world, or the rest of the people that end up being dragged into the situation. Just like Israel's basically dragged America into this situation, you know. And Trump's own stupidity, because he is stupid. I actually, listening to him campaign, I thought, because he never really did anything from 2016 to 2020. He did. He walked out of the JCPOA. He stopped the non-proliferation treaty. But them kind of things he did, he was quite far apart, so he didn't register all at once. And the other political machinations of his, what was then a corrupt entity, they basically stayed in America. We didn't get to hear about them. Simply because the fact is our media, they don't tell the truth no more. They've not told the truth for years. They've never had to. They've competed with the internet. They've bombarded it with fake news. They've bombarded it with misinformation, altered or synthetic material. So some of that looks real, is not. And some of that is real, is real, not Israel. Some of that is real, doesn't look real. And that's how they like it. So that, you know, you're just sticking on that screen trying to find something good, trying to get your dopamine. I mean, if you want to talk about addiction, I mean, Trump is addicted to leaving a legacy that doesn't make him out to be what he actually is. And it's not going to happen, because even if his grandchildren are told what a great man he was, just because they show him clips of the likes of everyone who's in his cabinet and everyone who supports him blowing smoke up his ass so it comes out of his ears. When they do a bit of research into him, they will hate him. And then they'll hate the people that told him he was great. And that'll be the end of his legacy. But he wants a, in my view, he wants something like the Kennedy, you know, not regime, but the Kennedy. The Kennedys in the American population, they are the pinnacle of service, public service, and that's what Trump wants to leave to the world. But they're all criminal, you know. Even his youngest child, you know, he's being taught criminal behaviour, even as we speak. He's probably dreaming of criminal behaviour, not the kind of criminal behaviour that normal people dream of, you know, of getting a few quid so they can maybe buy a new couch or get a new telly or what have you. These are people who, they're not happy until they've got everything they can possibly get. And remember the cartoons where you see everything bursting out the door? And that's Trump, with everything he can get. It's like a cartoon character. But I wish he was like Wile E. Coyote, you know, in Roadrunner. That'd be a nice ending for Trump, wouldn't it? At the end of one of his own tomahawks. Can't see it happening. I can't see anything happening in Iran. That's going to be quick and as easy as it was last year in June. You know, I believe they're going to stand up for it. They're going to, you know, and America will not accept defeat. It will not accept defeat. And you start thinking American naval craft, and you've got a fucking nutcase on the button, you know. It's like the car keys when you're drunk, you know, and someone takes them off you because you're a danger. Well, he's the president, so they're not going to take the button away from him. And he's in, you know, what is he, early 80s? I mean, he's the oldest ever president in it. You can see it in him. His age, his tiredness in him, you know what I mean? And he still goes on with himself. Tariffs, he's been told what you did was illegal. No, it's not. So he switched it. Now he can destroy any country, but he can't charge you for it. Yeah, like you're going to pay to have your country fucking ruined. Guy's a nutcase, and he's got no morality. And if that's the only thing we have to hope he doesn't go that one step too far, then I wouldn't like to put money on it. Guy's a nutcase. The guy's a nutcase. And then he's got Europe just following him, you know, capping and doffing the cap. Oh, I'd like to say that, you know, once we get over all this trouble, then maybe there's hope for the world. But there isn't. All Trump is like Netanyahu, who wants to stay in power so he doesn't have to go to court and go to prison and have his entire life wasted. Trump is in the same boat. He doesn't want to leave anyone talking about Epstein. And if it means destroying Iran and the entire Middle East, if that's what it takes, he'll do it, because he's got the power to do it. And no matter what anyone says, when you give Lex Luthor always had Superman. to keep him in check. Every major criminal that we talk about always had someone to keep them in check. You know, their alter ego, or their, what's the word now? You know, the like the I don't know, we have Christ and the Antichrist, don't we? You know, you have the police and criminals, yeah? Well, what happens when you've got a president who's out of control? Do you think Rubio's going to start a coup? Do you think Rubio will take Trump out and shoot him behind the back of the White House? I doubt it. Maybe he should do, but he won't do. You know what I mean? Because his eyes are focused on 2028. He just wants to keep his head down until 2027, when he can start pushing, you know, I should be president. Because if all else fails, stick your head in the sand. And that's where his head is now, in the sand. Starmer, his head's not in the sand. His head's like that caught in the headlights, the rabbit, you know. But he's gaining more. He's gaining more bottle as each hour goes by, and if he can hide himself for long enough, you know, make a few U-turns on a few things that, if added all up, would maybe cause the end of him. He's just staying out of the way, but following in the footsteps, because if he steps out of Trump's footprints, he's in a minefield, and he's seen what can happen to him when he tries to talk his way out of what's going on. He can't. All that he do is make it worse. And he don't want that, does he? No matter what, the last thing he wants is to be remembered as a scumbag. Like Trump, like Netanyahu, you know. I don't know. I just hope the worst doesn't come. But you've got to prepare for the worst, because when you throw shit about, and especially near the fan, it's getting spread all over. And we'll be lucky if we can get out of this unscathed, which I doubt very much, you know. There's no one fault. Can you imagine how many Iranian nationals are in this country illegally? Hey, look at that, you know. Anything could happen, couldn't it? I'm not saying it will, and I'm not saying that all immigrants are sleeper cells, but just imagine if some of them are. You know, if 1 million people have come here illegally, I'm not having it that there's not a few wrong uns in it. I mean, we already know there are wrong uns, but how far, I don't know. But like I say, with Starmer, we can get rid of him. You know, we just don't have anyone to take his place. That's the problem we have. In America, there's many people to take Trump's place. People who will maybe make a difference to America. But over in this country, we have no one. We did have people, but they soon got kicked out of the Labour Party. And everyone thinks Nigel Farage is the next person to maybe take the top job. But he's worse. He's just a fraud. He's an enemy of the people. You know, regardless of what you think, that man flying. You know, that man's been involved in 2 plane crashes, and injured himself. His second injury, you know what it did? It stopped him playing golf. Stopped him playing golf. He set up education foundations in the Isle of Man, a tax haven. You know, his excuse for that was we was never going to use it. Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's like why you buy a gun. You know, you buy a gun just in case, don't you? Hey. But you still go to the firing range every week. Anyway, we'll leave it there with my little rant for today. It's not a little rant, but I think the next video will be on Nigel Farage because his history is more checkered than Rupert's pants. You know that? Hey. He has got a checkered history. And for someone who wanted to get rid of Europe, not get rid of Europe, but get Britain out of Europe, he didn't spend a lot of time in Europe. That was including the 7 elections he lost in this country. You know, he's only 60 odd, and he spent half his life trying to get in Parliament. Now he's in there, do you think you're getting him out? Whoa. Anyway, before I get too carried away, we'll call it a day, and it won't take long to do any research on Farage. We already know he's a fraud. You know, he's not. He's one of the people. He's the working class. Yeah, of course he is. And if you believe that, you'll believe Trump, where the Epstein files, what did he do? They prove he wasn't one of them. Okay. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.